Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Weekend at Bakugo's. This will be Part 12, Chapters 12 and 13. Chapter 12. He was looking at Ground Beta. No, Kamina Ward. Ground Beta. Kacchan! The cry echoed around him, and he spun on the spot trying to pinpoint the source. Kacchan! He finds red shoes first. Up. Red splatters on green fabric. Up. Green eyes on a chalk-white face. The scene shifts sickeningly from Ground Beta to Kamina Ward. And back. And back. Deku! No sound. Deku staggers and his own feet finally get the message to move. Nearly there. I'm coming. Still nothing. Nearly there. He's running but not gaining any ground, feet pounding but not making a sound. A faceless shadow now looms between them, and it rings every instinctual alarm bell he has. Deku! His noiseless cry dies in his throat as the shadow moves. Everything flickers. Swipe. Deku is open from hip to opposite shoulder. Red on green. Deku gasps in surprise. Deku! He can only feel the shout in his own chest. Ground Beta. Flicker. Swipe. Missing a limb. No! Kamina Ward. Flicker. Swipe. Hole through Deku's chest. They scream. Only Deku sounds. Ground Beta. Flicker. Swipe. Kamina Ward. Flicker. Swipe. The shadow looms over Deku's prone form. Stop! His own voice finally echoes. Please! He begs. Flicker. Sound floods back like he's breached the surface of a lake. He is on his knees next to Deku, who is gasping wetly. All of his injuries are happening at once. He doesn't have enough hands. And he can't put pressure everywhere it's needed. Can't stop the bleeding. He's trying so hard. He's panicking. There's so much red on green, red on black, red on them, they're covered. Kacchan. He dares to glance at Deku's face. Pallid, splattered, smiling. A shaking hand touches his face as he leans into it. The other hand finds his own, stopping its frantic attempts to fix. Deku's chest stutters, ragged breathing becoming labored, and shallower and shallower and shallower. Kacchan. The hand drops from his face. The lights go out. Bakugo's own anguished shout wakes him. He's shaking and gulping air when he sits up to put his head in his hands. Kacchan? That small voice in the dark is almost enough to make him lose it completely, to give in to the grief still saturating his system. He nearly jumped out of his skin when he felt a light touch on his leg. Bakugo looked up to see Izuku's face, concerned but uninjured, sleepy but alive. Come here, he croaked. Izuku wrapped his arms around Bakugo's neck and squeezed him tight. Still shaking, with his heart thumping, Bakugo allowed himself to hold on for dear life. Did Kacchan have a nightmare? Izuku whispered into his neck, and he could only nod. Do you want to tell me about it? Bakugo huffed at Izuku parroting his own words from this morning back at him. Not right now, kiddo, but thanks, he whispered back. Izuku loosened his hold and pulled back slightly to peer at him. You going to be okay? The toddler asked him, very seriously, and Bakugo's mouth twitched. I will be, yeah. His breathing was steadying, and his heart rate began to slow. Izuku nodded, and Bakugo had expected him to climb back into bed, but he sat down next to him on the mattress. Without another word, Izuku wriggled down, pulled Bakugo's blankets up so only the hair spikes on the pajamas were visible, and rolled over. You cheeky little shit, Bakugo grumbled, smiling slightly, at the level of nerve Izuku could show at 3 a.m. Night-night, Kacchan, Izuku giggled, showing no intention of moving. Bakugo sighed, resigning himself to sharing again. He lay back down and poked Izuku, prompting another giggle. Night, nerd. Chapter 13. Loud knocking at the dorm door roused Bakugo from his sleep. Go away, he grumbled. The knocking came again. Just fucking kick it down, why don't you? He squeezed his eyes closed even tighter, turning his face further into the pillow. It's noisy, Kacchan, Izuku mumbled, rolling so he was curled into Bakugo's chest. He pulled the covers over his own head in an attempt to block out the day. Bakugo hummed in agreement and was considering doing the same, just as the door began to inch open. He cracked one eye and glared. If your hair enters the room before you do, you have a problem. Bro? Came a whisper from the door. Bakugo grunted and continued his one-eyed glaring. He was now incredibly conscious of the fact that Izuku was cuddled up to him under the blankets. Kirishima edged into the room, clutching a stack of toast. I brought you both some breakfast, 'cause you can't really go down. Bakugo had just opened his mouth to tell him to shut the fuck up before he blabbed the whole plan, when Izuku sat bolt upright, throwing the blanket off of them both. Toast! He squealed, and he tumbled along the mattress to Kirishima, who now had frozen by the door. Bakugo just groaned and closed his eyes. He knew Shitty Hair would be looking between him and Izuku and the bed and back again, and it was too fucking early to be dealing with it. So much for getting back to sleep, he grumbled instead and hauled himself upright. Izuku was heading back to the bed with his hands full of buttery breakfast. Oh no you don't, nerd. Izuku froze with one foot on the mattress, his face the picture of childish innocence. Bakugo jabbed his finger first at the toast. You are not eating that. Then at the bed he was still sitting in here. But, Izuku stammered. Bakugo noticed how, despite the wide eyes and stutters, he continued to edge forward. Cheeky little. I am not sleeping in your toast crumbs. You can eat in your bed or you can sit on the floor. He folded his arms across his chest and leveled a stare at the toddler. If he wore glasses, he would have been peering over the top of them. Izuku's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly, as if weighing his chances. Then he plopped down on the floor, cross-legged, and started to munch. With a sigh, he finally glanced at Kirishima, whose eyes flicked between them, and then pointedly at the bed next to him. So fucking predictable. Nightmare, Bakugo shrugged, declining to mention whose nightmare it had been. Kirishima nodded sympathetically and ruffled Izuku's hair before folding down to sit next to him. Am I running a breakfast club now? What the fuck? If I can't go downstairs, did you bring coffee? Bakugo knew full well Kirishima hadn't. He clapped a hand to his forehead. I knew I'd forgotten something. Sorry, bro. Things are a bit manic downstairs. Bakugo shook his head as he stood. I'll go. Keep an eye on Izuku for me. To Izuku he added, brush your teeth and stuff when you're done. Do you want a cup of tea this morning? Izuku nodded emphatically. Yes, please, Kacchan. And then we'll go out to the shop this morning, okay? Okie dokie. On his way out, he snagged 2 pieces of toast and his phone. He was texting as he closed the door behind him. You are coming this afternoon, right? Wouldn't miss it. Photo. From yesterday. Good, and thanks. I'll check the picture later. Bakugo took a deep breath in before hitting send on his next message. Can I use the kitchen in the staff dorms this morning? 4. Huh? Oh, fuck's sake. He texts like dunce face. It's 2 letters difference, for the love of... Party prep. Want to cook something for this afternoon, but our kitchen has been overrun, and we're being effectively kicked out until kickoff. Will it be for everyone? Oh my god, yes, Sensei, I will feed you. Yep. Okay. Thumbs up emoji. Bakugo snorted and sent his thanks. Pro-hero Eraserhead, everybody. The common room looked much the same as it had last night, except now lights were strung up and speakers were stacked, and there were open boxes of who only knew what all over the place. There were covered trays in the kitchen, all smelling sweet and sticky, and there were 2 big square sponge cake layers on cooling racks, but there was a buzz of energy, the unmistakable feeling of preparation, in the air. A few of his classmates were rummaging through the cabinets, clearly looking for something. Sorry, Sato, can't find any. Tokiyami's voice echoed from one of the cupboards on floor level. Dark shadow popped out of another, shaking its head. Ah, damn it, I must have run out. Sato muttered to himself. I'll have to go with green. Run out of what? Bakugo interrupted, making them all jump. He had to grin at that just a little. Good morning, Bakugo. I believe Kirishima was bringing you and Midoriya breakfast. Ida emerged from another cupboard. Jesus fucking Christ. How many more are in there? Bakugo nodded impatiently. He's watching Izuku. I've come for coffee. He turned back to Sato. Run out of what? He repeated. Red food coloring. Sato clarified. I was going to decorate the cake in All Might colors, but I can't without the red coloring, so it'll have to be green, I'm afraid. I'll get it. Bakugo cut him off, shrugging. Me and the nerd are going to the shop anyway. Cool, man. Thanks. Bakugo nodded and set about making himself coffee and a tea for Izuku, rooting through one of the cupboards to find his preferred tea. There weren't any. He must have run out. Bakugo nabbed a tea bag from a box that he knew Izuku liked. That'll have to do for now. He added Izuku's favorite tea to his mental shopping list as he added a bit of honey to Izuku's cup. He shouldered his door open to find Kirishima stretched across Izuku's bed with his legs up the wall, his head hanging over the edge. What the fuck are you doing? Bakugo sighed, shutting the door with his heel. Kirishima, upside down, shrugged at him. I'm comfy. Izuku's brushing his teeth. Izuku, he called through the bathroom door. Be quick, your tea'll go cold. Okie dokie, Kacchan. With his legs outstretched, he settled himself on the edge of the mattress. He set Izuku's cup on the floor between his knees and wrapped his hands around his own. Fuck are you staring at? Nightmare, huh? For fuck, can't you just have a day off? Bakugo glowered as he flicked Kirishima between the eyes. Whose? What does that matter? Yours, then, Kirishima muttered, concern on his face. The fact that the expression was upside down did nothing to curb Bakugo's irritation. You okay? Bakugo scrubbed a hand down his face. Yeah, no, I am, but fuck, I don't know. A lot happened yesterday with the training stuff, the damn extras interrogating Izuku, and then you and Aizawa-sensei taking a hammer to my brain. I was real fucking tired, and I got a real fucking weird dream because... Wait, me and Aizawa-sensei? Kirishima finally righted himself. Shit. What did he... The bathroom door opened. All done, Kacchan. Saved by the Izuku. As Izuku drank his tea, that he had described as scrummy, Bakugo took a quick shower and got himself dressed. Kirishima and Izuku were jabbering about something while he fished the cargo shorts and second t-shirt that Yamamoto had made out of one of the drawers. Time to get dressed, kiddo. He threw the clothes at Izuku, barking out a laugh when the t-shirt unfolded midair and draped itself over his head completely. He glanced at Kirishima, who hadn't moved from where he was sprawled across the bed. Make yourself useful and pass the bag from under there. He did, and Bakugo pulled out the red shoes first, shaking his head as Kirishima laughed at the sight of them, before tossing them to Izuku. He immediately stuck them on his feet, smiling happily. Kirishima asked, How are you going to... get out? The without Izuku seeing anything went unsaid, but Bakugo heard it nonetheless. He rummaged in the bag for a second before answering. With this, he said, and revealed the hood from Izuku's hero costume with a flourish. Thank fuck it's detachable. Ooh, Kacchan, what's that? Izuku's head popped through the neck of the shirt, and his eyes were alive with curiosity. Bakugo grinned. Remember what I said yesterday, about you going to school here? Uh-huh. And there was an excited uplift in Izuku's voice. This, he held up the cowl by the ears, is part of your costume. My... Izuku whispered and walked towards him, face alight with a disbelief bordering on reverence. Want to try it on? Hissed Kirishima, bouncing slightly, just absorbing Izuku's excitement. Izuku nodded, seemingly lost for words. Bakugo slipped the hood over his curls, deftly adjusting it so that he could use the eye holes, then he straightened the ears. Izuku looked up at him, completely ecstatic. Holy shit, that's adorable. He spun Izuku around for Kirishima to see. Kiri, look! I'm a hero! You sure are, little man. Best hero ever. Izuku giggled and Kirishima pulled out his phone to take a picture. Before he could, Bakugo leaned forward and whispered something in Izuku's ear that Kirishima couldn't hear, but he took pictures of them anyway. Izuku nodded and planted his feet. Then he balled his hands into fists and touched his knuckles together in front of his chest. Kirishima's mouth popped open, a look of mingled pride and amusement on his face. Green Riot! Unbreakable! Izuku shouted proudly. Bakugo cackled as Kirishima toppled off the bed and scooped Izuku up into a bone-crushing hug. He squealed with delight as Kirishima spun him around and around, yelling, So manly, Zuku! Bakugo stood up, still grinning. They really needed to get going. As soon as he was up, Izuku was reaching for him. He took him from Kirishima, who still looked on the verge of prideful tears, and headed to the bathroom so Izuku could see himself. The toddler was fascinated by the mask and kept touching the ears. Kirishima was watching them from the doorway, phone at the ready as always. Kacchan, why am I a bunny? Izuku asked quietly. Huh. I don't actually know. I think it started as your own version of All Might's hair spikes. Bakugo realized he truly had no idea. He'd never asked. He should definitely ask. Oh, cool, Izuku breathed. I like being a bunny, though. Bunnies are cute. Bakugo smiled at him, through their reflection. They sure are, buddy. Bakugo yanked the hood down over Izuku's eyes, without warning, and sprinted through the common room. Pikachu and Soy Sauce were both yelling, "Go, go, go," like they were on a military operation. Kacchan! Izuku yelped, little hands scrabbled against his own, trying to free himself. Sorry, Zuku. Authorized personnel only, Round Cheeks called as they ran past. Once through the doors, Bakugo glanced down just long enough to unmask a giggling, bright-eyed Izuku. He shoved the mask back into his back pocket and kept running, the wind winding through his spikes and ruffling Izuku's hair. Izuku waved to Todoroki as he stepped out of their way. Hi, Todo! Todoroki waved back, and they flashed past him, too. Bye, Todo! Bakugo doesn't slow down, because he doesn't fucking need to, and raced towards the barrier, Izuku laughing in his arms. They ran most of the way to the local store where Bakugo deposited Izuku into a trolley. They don't really need that much, but this way Izuku can't wander off. He knows what they need, and it's early morning, so the place is quiet. They whipped around the store, Izuku watching everything that Bakugo puts in the trolley until he gasps. Is Kacchan making katsudon? Maybe. You'll just have to be patient and find out, won't you? He booped Izuku's nose. It wrinkled under his finger, and Izuku giggled and shook his head away. They were nearly at the counter when Bakugo remembered the food coloring and Izuku's tea, and had to loop back around. He immediately regretted not having the forethought to bring a backpack and resigned himself to the carrier bags instead. You're going to have to walk back, kiddo, he explained to Izuku as he lifted him and the bag out of the trolley before returning it to the others. That's okay, Izuku said, before adding with a very untoddler-like smirk. I can carry something if it gets too heavy. Bakugo froze momentarily. If it wasn't for the voice being so many octaves above where it should be, for a second, things almost felt normal. Their new normal. Bakugo's chest ached a little for the quick back and forth that he and Izuku had developed since he'd apologized. He missed it. He missed Izuku. As cute and as fun as little Izuku was, and as, to Bakugo at least, enlightening this weekend had been, he found himself really hoping the principal was right about this only being a 3-day thing. Tch, I think I've got it, nerd, Bakugo grumbled back with an exaggerated eye roll. Yeah, now I've got a better grasp of what's going on in my head. I need to talk to you, properly. Izuku waited until they had started walking before gently slipping his hand into Bakugo's, and Bakugo let him. As they walked, he let himself imagine what it might feel like if Izuku's hands were bigger, calloused and scarred, with slightly crooked fingers. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 13 of Weekend at Bakugo's. Chapter 14 will be up next. I hope you all are still enjoying this fic. Never ceases to make me smile. So let me know your thoughts and reactions to everything so far. And as always, thank you so much for listening.